Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Progressive Podcast. My name is Dylan, and I'm joined by the usuals, Belay, Ben, and Max. And today we're joined by our guest, Patrick Roath, who is running for Congress in Massachusetts' 8th Congressional District, which includes, and correct me if I'm wrong, parts of Norfolk County, Plymouth County, as well as parts of Boston. And he's running against the old head, as we would say, Democratic incumbent congressman. And thank you, Patrick, for coming on. I'll let you introduce yourself if I missed anything, but we're happy to have you on the Progressive Podcast.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks so much, Dylan. Thanks, guys, for having me. It's awesome to be on. I'm really thrilled to do this. Yeah, that's more or less right. It's kind of Boston and the South Shore is what we say around here. A lot of the city of Boston, where I live, and then the communities just south of it. And yeah, look, like that's home for me. My mom was born in Brockton and grew up in Braintree, which is here just south of the city. I got my start actually in Boston, coming back here for college, and got involved very early on through in politics, working for Governor Deval Patrick, went on to become a voting rights lawyer and work on voting rights issues here. And look, that's the mission that's kind of driving me now, right? I think we need to rebuild confidence in our democracy. We need a Democratic Party that is stronger, that's sticking up for us, that's pushing up, looking out for people and thinking about the future. And I think we're just not getting it done with some of the leaders that have been there for decades. That's a national problem, and we've got that problem here in a congressman who's been in office for 24 years and doesn't have a lot to show for it. So there's a lot to talk about. I'm excited for it, but that's the starting point for me.
Patrick, go ahead and tell us about like your beginning, right? We got a little document about you, did a little background research. We were doing some light reading, right? We heard something about being a press intern in Obama's White House, 2009. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, that's something that was long. We were like 4 or 5 at that point. That's
Oh my
so
gosh. Well, you guys are dating. Well, it's funny. Like I see myself in you guys in a lot of way, right? In college, like, my mom had this experience of waiting tables on the Cape and then getting hired by IBM to work as, one of their first kind of female hires early on in the 70s. And she met my dad there. And that was sort of their pathway up to the middle class, right? And prosperity and that American dream opportunity story that a lot of people used to experience. We don't so much anymore. And in college, when I was your age, I was just really into politics, and President Obama was getting elected, right? And Governor Patrick was governing in Massachusetts, and there was an optimistic vision of what we could do with government, and an inclusive, exciting vision. And that got me inspired, and that got me excited. So I applied to be a intern at the White House. Somehow landed that gig, and I was the first White House press intern when the Obama administration started. That was a blast. I was just talking to some White House alumni folks today, and it was a really exciting time to be there, even as a young 22-year-old, right, for the birth of the Affordable Care Act, among other things. And I just decided to come back here to Boston and keep working for Governor Patrick. I just believed in what he was offering, and I thought that would be an exciting career path. So worked on his campaign, worked in the State House as a speechwriter, and have now kind of law school and had a career in the law, but sort of always stayed involved in this world, right? Like Massachusetts, public advocacy, public interest work, and organizing. So that's it for me.
So obviously 2008, 2009 was super exciting. As we've heard, it's more of a historical thing for us than a lived experience, but was there a specific issue? You mentioned organizing and staying involved, if not directly, but in the periphery of politics. Now, obviously, you're running for Congress. Was there an issue? Was there a thing? Was there a story? Was there a book that you read? Something that like really drew you into the political world? Maybe Boston's historical democratic perspective. Is there anything in there that drew you to politics specifically?
Yeah. Part of it was this sense of optimism and confidence in government that we could actually solve problems and get things done, that we could still work for people to lift them up, and government had a constructive role to play. That felt There was more optimism about that, even in the midst of the financial recession in 08, 09. So that was part of it. But to more specifically, you're kind of asking about substance. It became kind of clear to me that it wasn't going to be enough just to push for the right policies, that we had to kind of fix our system. We had to get our democracy right. And a lot of it had to do with how we run our elections and how people get involved, which is what kind of got me excited about the voting rights work, right? And so I was the chair of Common Cause Massachusetts, advocacy group here that works on election reform and got things done like automatic voter registration for the state, push for same day registration, push for mail-in voting, right? And like get that stuff done so we could actually get our government to work better, get it to be more representative, and get more people involved. And that to me, like the kind of the bones of our democracy, the structure of it, getting people to buy into the system we have and making that system better. That's what kind of animated me. It was that kind of set of issues, right? Almost those meta issues like campaign finance reform, things that govern how our redistricting, right? Like those kinds of things are really what animated me at the beginning. And to this day, right? Like I'm running now because I want to rebuild confidence in government. And it's not necessarily fixing the voting laws now. It's proving to people government can work by getting some things done with it, right? And actually addressing people's real concerns and fixing that sense that I alluded to at the beginning, that opportunity story is harder and harder to come by, right? So that's it. It's not, I don't have like a one plant. I can't plant myself onto like, housing or something, although housing is important, or environmental. It was a bigger thing.
Well, on the topic of rebuilding trust, so you have pledged not to take any corporate PAC money during your run. And I think very impressively, I think last quarter you still managed to outraise your opponent, Representative Lynch. And so I'm wondering, do you feel like that actually provides an advantage for you refusing to take those funds, because it makes up, it's more than made up in the increased amount of people who are like confident in your campaign and able to donate. And like, I almost feel like the number one priority for Democrats right now needs to be this rebuilding the trust, regardless of whether they're correct to think that this is a reason why it's corrupt or whatever. This is what people believe. And if they don't trust government, they're not going to trust government to fix things. So can you talk about that decision to reject corporate PAC money, how that's worked out for you so far, and whether it provides any lessons moving forward for Democrats?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny. I never thought of it tactically. It just is the right thing to do, right? Like we have such a broken system, and with my background and the values that I want to bring to the Congress and the way I want to go about this, it just wasn't really an option for me to think about buying into this kind of disgusting, corrupt part of it, right? And like, I think we should talk about term limits, right? I think we need a lot of reform in the system, and not taking corporate PAC money was like kind of the first step that I knew that I could take. That would help express that. Citizens United is just disgusting. It needs to get overturned. And that's a long-term project that all Democrats need to be invested in. But yeah, why? It's easy to talk about these things in the abstract. But the why is because people are tuning out. People are not believing that these people that they send down there and stay for decades are actually working for them and paying attention to their needs. They're like, tied up with billionaires, right? They're tied up with corporations. And so I wanted to make that statement. I hope it helps. It's hard. It's hard to raise money from individuals. It's definitely hard, we've been able to, which is great. So far, I think there's been a lot of appetite and excitement for this race. Our first partial quarter, we raised 120,000 more than our opponent, who takes plenty of PAC money and has been there for 24 years. Unfortunately, we have to do that to be competitive. I wish we didn't, but it's the system. So I think we'll be successful with it. I think Democrats get this, right? Nobody really likes the idea that we're out there begging corporate PACs for money. They feel like they have to, but that can change, right? Like we could just change that. We could fix that. And I want this to move in that direction.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if money was the end all be all, we would have just finished Hillary Clinton's second term. And Kamala Harris would have been the second, female president. So it's not the end all be all. But speaking on transparency, an issue that a lot of Americans care about, I'm sure your own constituents care about, is banning stock trading in Congress. There is a bill right now, Democrats and Republicans supporting it. I think there's one Republican in the Senate, Senator Josh Hawley, that currently supports it. One is more than zero, but in the House, there's real momentum. So if you do win your race, you would be in the House. Would you support that bill? Would you also support the provisions to stop the president and the vice president from also being able to purchase stocks? I know that there's some controversy there with President Trump tweeting that Republicans in the House to support this are out to get him.
Yeah, no, of course. Look, that's an easy one. Like the whole caucus is behind it. And it does require some sacrifice of members of Congress, right? Because it's a very prophylactic thing. It's like really pretty strict. But look, we got to convince people that people are doing the right thing and they've got their interests first. And this is like a useful part of it. I mean, if I have it right, I think the Republicans are so dead set against this that they're like putting up procedural roadblocks and stopping the Congress from starting up again just to avoid taking a vote on this thing, because they know how popular it is and how much their constituents want this thing to pass, because they understand what the risk is. It pulls like crazy, right? People get this. So yeah, that's an easy one for sure.
Perfect.
Well, so in meeting that moment, I want to harken back to what you said about Republicans are putting on these roadblocks. I've been thinking a lot about just the way that they operate, that their constituents are being handed a shit deal. You know, it doesn't make any sense to me, right? All these issues that are important to them, whether it's the Epstein files or the banning stock trading, I mean, obviously the unpopular cuts to Medicaid, we can go on. But what is your diagnosis of that? I mean, you have a quasi inside outside look where you're got your foot in there kind of, but you're not completely in the mix. So what is your take on that? I mean, it's a confusing Congress, and eventually you're going to be a part of that. So what are your takes on that?
Well, you guys, I mean, this is way before your time, but you can look back to Ronald Reagan, right? Like here, these guys have been telling voters that they're with them for decades, telling working people, right? Like people who need government assistance to get by, who need some basic help with stuff. They've been using cultural issues to try to distract them from their actual agenda, which is to subsidize corporate profit, to help billionaires, and to make it incrementally, marginally easier for the wealthiest Americans to get by, at the cost of the programs that help the neediest Americans and help people access the middle class and actually get thrive in their lives, right? I mean, and that's exactly what you're seeing with this big, beautiful bill nonsense. They are stripping Medicaid funding away, right? Right now, these subsidies that we got done with the Affordable Care Act that are helping millions of lower middle class Americans access healthcare, they're taking that away and they're giving it the way that they're balancing the budget is tax cuts for the rich. And so there's nothing new about it, right? Like it is the same old Republican story that we've been seeing time and time again. And they just distract people by talking about whatever woke is the thing now, right? DEI is the thing now. And that has just been the through line. And look, it's been successful, right? We as Democrats have got to be better about talking about exactly this, talking about our values and why these projects of ours matter. And I think we've also got to do a better job of showing a little skin to people, right? Like things that we can get done with them and how it impacts their lives on things like housing, right? And just the cost of housing. We need to go there. We need to go to the cost of daycare for working families, the cost of healthcare, the cost of education. Like that's where we need to be bringing back the focus to show people that we're actually on their side and demonstrate the hypocrisy that the Republicans are after. I get worked up on it. There's nothing new about it. They keep doing it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an interesting point that there's nothing new about it, and this is kind of the old school Republican playbook, because that may be true, but it certainly feels like the old school response to the Republican playbook isn't going to work anymore. And you're running against Representative Lynch. He's been there for what, I believe 26 years, 24 years in Congress. And recently, his own constituents have been going after him for not doing enough to stand up to Trump. I saw that a woman at an event in Boston last month, pressed him to be more aggressive. And he said, I get to decide that. You want to decide that? Then run for Congress. And clearly you have taken him up on that offer. And so how do you feel that his kind of old school approach to resisting Republicans is faring under Trump? And how would you respond differently under these current Republican attacks?
Yeah. I'm not even sure I can describe him as resisting a lot of this, right? I mean, he's part and parcel to it. Look, I respect his service, right? He's had a long time in there, of course, as you said, and he's not a bad guy. But this is a congressman who voted against the Affordable Care Act. He's the last remaining House Democrat who voted against the Affordable Care Act, the largest expansion of Medicaid in the history of this country, at a time where that vote margin, I was there, was very tight. He abandoned it. This is a guy who votes with the Republicans on things like the Laken Riley bill. He's the only member of the Massachusetts delegation who voted with Republicans to hand this Trump administration more deportation authority at a time where they're conducting this dangerous and illegal nationwide deportation campaign. So that's the opposite of what we need, right? Like that is actually buying into what they're trying to do and not anticipating how dangerous some of those votes were, which might look like you're being politically sensible or moderate at the time, right? But actually enabling what is happening to our government right now and what's happening to our country. So that's where I start, is like, I'm not sure he's really even doing that part of the job. What we need, I think, is someone who's ready to stick up for our values and is also ready to talk to those exact issues, who gets it and who is going to stand in the way of them doing this stuff, and then also talk about the future, right? And talk about what the optimistic, affirmative case for what this could look like is, which is something that I think, we haven't got enough of necessarily from the National Democratic Party. It's not just saying no to Trump. That starts there, and then we've got to figure out what comes next and tell people about it.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly said. We can't just resist Trump. I think we have to put forward our own vision. And so you're talking about that. I've seen your page, seen your issues. What is that vision that you can sell or want to give Americans? You talk about specifically about your own community or just the national Democratic brand. What is that vision that we should be offering? We spoke about transparency, government transparency when it comes to stocks, campaign finance reform, two issues that are very popular that I feel like we don't talk about enough. So what is that vision that we should be giving Americans?
Yeah. And I just get back to kind of where I started, in my story, that opportunity ladder, that escalator that brought my parents up, right? My dad was drafted into the Army. My mom was waiting tables in the Cape, and they found this company and they found a place in time that worked for them, and it kind of brought them along. That is what we need to get back to, right? We need to figure out how we get back to the opportunity society that this country used to be, and how government could help do that, and the programs that could help them. And right now, what that means is addressing the affordability crisis, right? And like, that is just so painfully obvious here in Boston and around the Boston community. Like, it is just impossible for people to own their first home. It is getting really hard to even make your rent payments. It is really hard for working families to find some childcare so both parents can get to work and get in and out of the city and get to work. So they're getting priced further and further out of the city. They're moving to other states. They're having to take jobs they don't necessarily want. That is where we have to be focused, and we can do something about that, right? We can subsidize childcare. We can make it easy. We can build tons more houses, and we can also make it easier for people to afford that first down payment. Like, there's a lot of work that can be done that takes energy and passion and boldness and creativity. And to get back to your point, Billy, is it also requires fixing our politics, right? Because it's standing in the way right now. And that's why campaign finance reform is important. And that's why voting rights are important. It's not because we love our democracy, which is true, but it's because we need that democracy to work for us and get some of this stuff done for people. And that's the country I think I want to live in. And that's what I want to hear people talk about more. That's why for me, it's rebuilding confidence in our government by getting things done and addressing some of these things. And it all kind of falls under that category of what we need to do to get this country working for people again. Does that help? That's how I think about it right now. And it changes. I hear things, it changes, but that's where I'm at.
I really love everything you said, and talking about rebuilding confidence in government by being able to get things done and building more housing. I'm curious, did you have a chance to read the Abundance book, and do you have any thoughts, obviously, on the movement, and would you identify kind of as an abundance Democrat in some sense with supporting building more housing, kind of streamlining the processes to do that? And is that something that you feel like can help the Democrats rebuild their brand?
Well, look, they got a lot of things right, Ezra and Derek, and they came to Boston for a reading, and I kind of went up to them and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna run and use some of this stuff, so keep an eye out."
Love it.
But look, it's not. I think sometimes it's not like a totalizing ideology, right? No one's an abundance Democrat. It is a useful perspective, and it's a lesson we need to learn, right? Because some of the hard-won victories of the 20th century that got us really important things like environmental regulation need to be updated, right? So we can build out our clean energy infrastructure. That's just true. So we can actually get things done like high-speed rail, right? Like the quintessential example. They're of course right about a lot of stuff. And there's some really important lessons and antidotes, I think, to some of the symptoms that we see right now that are in there. Here I think of how just how much clean energy infrastructure we could be building around Boston and the South Shore that is instead right now like fossil fuel, right? That is where we need to get going. We need to provide more stuff to people. And housing is a huge one. We do need more housing. We need to build a ton of it in this country. We need millions and millions of homes probably, right? And I think we need to incentivize communities that are thinking about it the right way. You can get that grant money if you think about zoning reform and density and transportation the right way, in an energy focused way, but also just a way that's going to get people access to more homes they can afford. Sometimes people want it to be like a whole personality, but it maybe it's not that, but it's a super smart book, and I've consumed everything related to it.
We can call ourselves abundance Democrats. You don't have to. It's okay. Progressive will identify that way. One thing that I did want to narrow in a little bit on a policy, and hopefully not too much. Hopefully, won't get too much in the weeds. But we're all from California, and you said housing. Talked about housing a bit.
Yeah.
What specific issues do you think are affecting Boston and that metropolitan area that are unique to Boston in relation to housing?
Yeah.
For LA, it's a lot of zoning. It's a lot of the NIMBYism movement, which really originated in Orange County, LA County, and Southern California, and then San Francisco as well. Are there any specific issues that you're seeing that you would want to change once you got into Congress, or maybe advocate for your local officials in the Boston area that would help the affordability crisis in housing and things like that?
Yeah. And look, you're right. A lot of it is local, super local, right? Like zoning stuff, how much community input goes into a given project, how much say an individual town meeting has over whether you get the variance. That's super local stuff. And there's a lot of that in Boston, like in California, right? We have a very proud tradition of local control. That's a good thing in a lot of ways, but it does impede progress sometimes. So, we can't wipe that off the map. You can't change that from the Congress. But what you can do is you could get really ambitious and creative at a federal level. And the way I think about it is sort of three big things I think we could do. And one is to just incentivize a ton more production of housing, period, right? Just make it cheaper and easier, because there is like a financing problem right now with a lot of the people who are developing housing nationwide. So that's one, but then that's just the supply. You got to fix the demand too. And it's really expensive for working people to get into homes. So I think we also should be subsidizing people to get that first down payment if they meet a certain threshold, right? Like get help directly to people, cash in hand, to help get that first home. That's really important. And then the third thing is like some kind of fund to reward communities that are doing it right. So if you, and not a stick approach, but a carrot approach. So if you're thinking smart about zoning, you're thinking smart about density, like a lot of communities are starting to, Boston included, then you're up for sort of some extra federal funding. I'm trying to think of a good name for it, because like it's kind of like race to the top, but that has some baggage now. It's kind of like a competition almost for like who can build the most. And look, I mean, sadly, as you guys know, if you read the book, Texas is kicking Massachusetts' butt on this stuff, right? Like that's where there's a lot of clean energy stuff being built. That's where a lot of housing production. That's where rents are coming down in the city of Austin, and we don't have that here. So if we could get some federal incentivizing to get that done, that would actually help unlock a lot of this, and it would help people, I think.
It's funny that you mentioned that about unlocking the supply with a carrot and the stick approach. Last I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was some sort of bipartisan bill going through the Senate with Warren and Senator Warren, and it was Senator Scott, right, with the new changes to HUD. Now these funding things it seems like a great mechanism, right? Rather than smacking you with a stick and punishing you, why not dangle more money in front of you? Change how we're doing appropriations, how these federal dollars are spent, right?
Yeah.
It's about being smart about our spending. In that same vein, though, I want to talk about that bill, not because I want to talk about that bill, but because I want to see a place that you'd be willing to work across the aisle. Where is something that you would find you would buck the party on? Where would you challenge establishment? What would you do differently? Because you are a different generation. You're a different Democrat. You are almost half the age of Representative Lynch, right? So where would you be willing to buck them? Where would you be willing to buck establishment? Where would you be able to buck conventional logic, right? Conventional, this is how we do it, and this is what we exist for, right? Where would you differentiate yourself on that?
Yeah, good, great question. Yeah, and first of all, that Senator Warren's bill, I think it's the road bill. It has an acronym. It's a great example of like bipartisan legislation that's like super smart, can actually get done, right? And like it gives me hope that in a space like housing, or in a space that's very cost affordability centric, like access to childcare, right, and access to some parts of education when it gets partisan, there's room for bipartisan compromise, right? The good kind, and not the Congressman Lynch kind of caving on our values. So I'll say that. Where to buck? Yeah. Look, a few things on that. It's tough because it's funny. In some ways, this entire candidacy is that, right? Like this is a guy who has been there for 24 plus years, and he's just like exists in this power structure that kind of dominates this area. And so there's a reason why there isn't some long time, I'm first time candidate. There's not some state senator who's doing this, right? There isn't some well-established political figure. It's because there's a culture of incumbency. There's a culture of waiting your turn that I think is corrosive to our democracy and our country in a way. And certainly our party has gotten a little too comfortable with that mindset, right? So I want to see I kind of want to see races like this all over the place, right? Like, not every incumbent should be challenged. It's not like an age cutoff thing, but there's a lot of pent up energy in this country for new thinking and new leadership that I want to kind of consider proliferating, right? Like, it's good. So and it's an attitudinal thing, right? That's kind of like a vibes thing a little bit. It's a politics thing. It's not necessarily an issue. On the issue, look, I'm really starting to get sold on term limits. I take that quite seriously. I don't think members of the party do as seriously as I do. I think on some of these, on some of the abundance level questions, like when people ask me what my first priority is, and I say like we need a really big creative housing bill, they're kind of like, what? Like I expected you to say the Green New Deal, right? Or I expected you to say one of the other talking points we've heard for a while, right? And so like just talking about things that way and introducing the idea that there are other priorities that are kind of bubbling up to the surface that we need to think about, like that's a bit of a different way of going about it. And then, look, and then, you guys have seen how the Democrats have responded in this Congress to the entirely predictable autocratic takeover of our government and the failure to anticipate where he was going to go and do the things that he just said he was going to do.
Patrick, let me just stop you there. I think they're writing another strongly worded letter.
Exactly, right, man? Like,
so. And this time it's going to go on Twitter also, not just Instagram.
Right. Yeah, and they'll read it on TikTok. And I just don't like that. That's not enough. And I get that you're out of power. Fine, you don't have the formal power levers of control. But this stuff was they kind of laid it out. They put out the plan. They said, here's what we're going to do. And everyone said, no, he's not going to do that. There's no way he'll do that. And that attitude needs to change because it's all at stake right now. It is all up for grabs.
Yeah, no, I think we've talked about this as a crew about how in the Democratic Party there really is this mentality of waiting your turn, even if that means waiting 30, 40, 50 years. I'm like, why do these people feel entitled to their seat? Like, you are elected by the people. So I really like that you're out there, you're challenging. The fact that no state senator or anyone else is challenging, that's like bullshit. It reminds me of 2024. There were a lot of people talking about Biden's vulnerability behind the scenes, but no one actually stepping to the front. Yeah. Besides Marianne Williamson, she was on this podcast, so we do appreciate her. Great person. But there is this mentality in the party. So how you said you're bucking it by like running. How have you seen this across the country? We're seeing this with like Zoran in New York City, with Graham in Maine. So why do you think there is this vibe shift where younger Democrats and just younger people in general are starting to buck incumbents?
I think it's a broadly shared view. I think that what we've been doing and the same people we've been sending and the same talking points we've been kind of re-articulating without a focus on the future and like an optimistic vision of what we're going to do and just saying, no, we're not Trump. Like that's just not working. And it's coming up in different ways. I think sometimes people try to lump me in with everybody who's a primary challenger, and they're kind of different, right? Each race is kind of different. And it's not bad. It's like a good thing. Like we should have lots of different types of people. And it says this party has to accommodate, the tent has to get bigger and bigger, I think, right? Like it's great. We need the socialists. We need the not so socialists. Like that's a good thing. And it's also going to help us figure out what to do to win this thing nationally the next time around. Right. Like I think that I really embrace that idea that people are taking different tactics. Doesn't mean I agree with all of them. Right. But like it's a good thing to have this conversation. And you try to this thing of like kind of tamping it down and say, no, like listen to us. That was really destructive in the 2024 election.
We have been listening to you and we lost to Donald Trump twice.
Yeah. And just this, and even just the sense that like this Washington crew is going to kind of pick the candidate, and like people that just rubbed people the wrong way. And so it's, we just kind of have to embrace the messy democracy part of it a little bit more. And like, yeah, if you're in the House, you're up every 2 years. Like you should be prepared for an election every 2 years. You should be out there.
Drilling into Boston again specifically, I crunched the numbers a little bit. Max is the math guy, but I did some math for once. So Massachusetts swung 8 points from Biden to Trump from 2020 to 2024, and the city of Boston almost 5 points. Is there a specific Boston politics reason? Is there a incumbency thing? Is Representative Lynch associated with the discontent in the city of Boston? Or as a counterpoint, maybe Boston is like one of the cities of democracy. It's where one of the founding cities of our republic. I think that's a a reputation to wear as a badge of honor. Is there a conflicting sort of sense in the city of Boston? Like, what is the on the ground news reporter saying about the city? The city, are residents fed up with what's going on, or are they ready to fight back against Trump? Where does everything kind of stand?
I think of ICE, right, and the deportation regime has been ramping up here increasingly. We have seen more and more federal law enforcement officials coming into our communities and just ripping them apart as loudly as possible, taking people off the streets and detaining them who do not have any violence in their past, right? Like who are even people who are citizens, people who have green cards, right? Young people, really just to kind of cause terror, right? And that does not rub people around here the right way. Even if they were sort of interested, if they're moderate maybe in some ways, and they were not fully bought into some of the social views of the larger Democratic Party, that has really turned people off. And we've got a mayor's race going on right now. That's become part of the dynamic. We've got a mayor in Boston that I'm deeply proud of, that I really personally believe in, who went to Washington and stood up for us against what the administration is trying to do to
She
our
killed
communities.
it. She killed
She
it
crushed
there
it, yeah, and she's
with the
amazing.
little cross on her head after it was Ash
Yeah.
Wednesday. So I had the same thing. I was like, she killed it.
Yep, me too, man. Catholics, yeah, she and like that's part of it, right? It's like sure, those are my Catholic values. Is like is caring for our people, right, and not excluding people from our communities, and not and having some grace, I guess, And what we've seen is this infliction of cruelty, and that there's a reaction to that. There's a reaction to that here, and I think there's going to be one nationwide. Like I don't think people understood what they were signing up for when they endorsed the immigration policies that this guy is running on and is now trotting out with his little private ICE army that they funded to the hill. And it's only going to get worse. And I just feel really motivated to stand up for that. I'm really enraged by Congressman Lynch's vote on the Lake and Riley Act that sort of precipitated this entire thing and ratified it. I don't think he thought it through. I think you've seen a lot of members of Congress, Democratic members, who voted for that, regretting that vote because they didn't realize how far they were going to take it, and it's just going to keep ramping up. So that's what your question makes me think of, Dylan. Like that's what I'm seeing on the ground. Not that it's universal, right? I'm sure there's some people who are on board with what's happening, but it's not like that has a lot to recommend it.
Yeah, and it's also that sense of kind of malaise of voter turnout was also down. That was a number that I forgot to mention. Especially amongst Democrats, but a sense of malaise and also a sense of like, oh, it's just like Trump is something and Kamala is just more of the same. So like, I'd rather choose something new. Maybe like maybe some novelty will change things. Is there like a follow-up question? Is there any sense of like, Boston is a very blue city, so I don't necessarily expect this like sort of characteristic to come up. But is there any sense of like regret in terms of people that you're meeting, or especially for people who voted for Representative Lynch? Is there any sort of sense of that as well? Like, oh, I thought we were going to get this thing, like maybe a more moderate Trump, who was also radicalized by an assassination attempt on him. He's obviously going to moderate after getting shot a couple of times. But is there any sense of that? Like, is there a regret, or sort of people are like, whoa, what did I do with my vote here?
Yeah, I'll say a few things. A lot of this district is the South Shore and the communities south of Boston, and communities like Brockton, which is has a huge Cape Verdean, Haitian American, Brazilian population. Communities like Quincy, which has a huge Chinese American population. Those were actually the communities that swung furthest toward Trump, right, relative to the prior election. That's a pattern we saw repeated across the country. And for a variety of reasons, we could debate it all day exactly why. You name some of them. Those are now the communities that are bearing the brunt of this administration's policies on immigration, first of all, but also on tariffs that are causing prices to go up. Also, like you see the jobs report today, like it's like we're like at 2009 levels of job growth. Like this is not a good economy for people who are trying to make it. Things are like just more expensive than ever. So I think they thought they were signing up for that. And that meaning like, cheaper prices and more enforcement at the border. And that's not what they're getting. So yes, I mean, definitely I see that in particularly in those communities where there were a lot of Trump voters, right? Like that's real. It's a safe Democratic seat. Yes. But like that is real there. And then you had another part of the question that I was just going to answer too that I forgot about. Something to do with is there regret?
Yeah, is there like a sense of regret and like kind of waking up to the moment
Oh,
that people
yes,
are?
Congressman Lynch. Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, that I think that feeds into the disappointment that people are feeling when they hear Congressman Lynch get up there and say, "No, I get to decide. I don't listen." Right? Like, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm just going to do my own thing. And then he goes and votes for Marjorie Taylor Greene immigration bills. And he goes and just doesn't really show up and speak for us. Like, he was at that hearing that Mayor Wu was at, and like you didn't hear much from him, right? Like, that's not what people are looking for right now. I think as part of because of this reaction to what's going on right now. And so I think there's a lot of appetite for new thinking and passion and creativity and urgency.
I think you're totally right that people are waking up and didn't expect a lot of this. I mean, we even see like the Joe Rogans of the world talking about how horrified they are by some of the aspects of the immigration policy. I guess my question is, why do you think Democrats failed so much in getting across what was going to happen if Trump was elected? It's not like any of this, like you were saying, they wrote it down. It was a plan. He talked about doing this kind of deportation, this mass deportation. He talked about instituting these ridiculous tariffs that were obviously going to be inflationary while running on reducing costs. So why is it that, I mean, it's not like Democrats didn't try. Obviously, we ran on Project 2025 a little bit, but why is it that it didn't quite get across, or that maybe people didn't believe Trump could be as bad as he actually has been?
I don't know if I have the entire answer. I guess what I'll say, a few things. Part of it is, I think there's a danger of over learning some of the lessons from what happened in 2024, right? Like, I don't want to overstate it. Kamala Harris did not have very long to run a presidential campaign. They had to put that thing together on the fly really quick.
107
right?
days.
Right, exactly. So we didn't get that full-throated defense, right? That articulation, that the period of introducing her, the period of getting out in the electorate, the period of drawing the contrast. You didn't see that, right? And so like that honestly makes a difference, I think. And we've got some issues, we know who to blame for that, frankly. Second is some of this stuff, like, it just goes in cycles. People weren't thrilled with inflation. People weren't psyched that prices were going up. They were excited to vote for not that. And like Trump just said, I'm not that. And so, people will point to, cultural issues. I pointed that too earlier, of course, that's the wedge that they try to drive. I just don't want us to overlearn and think like, oh, we've got to abandon our commitment to trans rights, for example, right? Or we got to abandon our commitment to immigrants because the voters, spoke on this. I'm not so sure, right? And I think that they're now going to get themselves in some trouble if they are governing thinking that that's the mandate that they have, that they get to retreat on all of these rights questions, on choice, right, on access to abortion care. I'm sure they would love to, and I think if they try, like, they will see the reaction, because I there's a lot of idiosyncratic things that happened in 2024, and I don't want to completely blame our message per se. There's a lot of other things going on, but look, like, I'm running because I do think we need new people get involved, right? Like, that's part of fixing it, is bringing some new people along and replacing some of the folks that are there.
Yep, Patrick. Before we let you go, great conversation. I do have a pretty important question. I don't know if you're familiar with RedZone. It's basically like a streaming thing. Yeah. So all of a sudden, this uninterrupted, just all day on Sunday, can watch football, just 4 screens in front of me, seeing my Chargers choke, and then the Raiders lose, which makes me feel really good. And then the Patriots lose. I'm sorry, but you guys are my
that
kryptonite.
might keep happening too.
Not this year, Travion Anderson.
Yeah.
But they in NFL announced that they're going to start having ads during RedZone, which is this huge. That is you don't do that. You don't do that, man.
I saw that.
So talking about corporate profits, what is your stance on that? Would you, maybe co-sponsor a bill? I think Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, said they should fix this. Under
Trump's
Trump,
America.
Commercials.
Trump's
Under
America.
Biden, no commercials during RedZone. Just saying, I was able to watch 4 teams in front of me. So what's your stance on that? Like, what can we do about that?
Yeah. It's like, it just reminds me kind of like Ticketmaster, right? Like, things that like get just worse over time the more people use them and the bigger these companies get, right? And like, I'm not saying everything needs to get broken up, but like, there is such a thing as bad, when a corporate actor gets into this position where they have sort of a monopoly over your attention, they can kind of do whatever they want with it. And there's a lot of temptation to increase prices and make the products worse, right? And, we can't like command and control the economy completely, but there's some things that we could do to intervene in the market to like make it better for consumers, right? Like, this is the Senator Warren's thing. And I'm a believer in that. And I'm trying to take your very fun little question and make it a little bit of a policy one. So
Love
I don't
it.
know if that helps. I saw the
That was
news
a
about it. I do
great
think it was
politician
bullshit.
answer. I'm just kidding. It was a great answer. It was a great answer.
Okay. Yeah,
Command
well,
and
I'm
control
learning.
over
I'm
RedZone.
learning.
Just as a closing thought from me, as a resident of LA County, if you're ever at a Lakers game, just know that we'll have beef. Just no
Okay,
Boston
good to know.
Celtics, any paraphernalia. To close on an NBA note, and
Yeah.
also we need to command and control the sports media and the NBA.
Yes, let's do it.
No blackouts for games. That's my closing thought.
Yeah, that's your platform.
Yeah, that's my platform.
You'd probably
Yeah.
win on that platform.
You probably win.
500 electoral votes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, well, great. So where
Max.
can we find you on your team? I mean, I know you got a website. Pretty sure it's your name. You want to go ahead and tell us where we can find more about you, where people can donate, where they can find your socials?
Great. Well, thank you. Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you guys. This was a blast. I really enjoy this. I'm kind of eager to do more and more podcasts. It's fun. It helps me think my own things through, right? And just have a great conversation. So thank you for having me on. PatrickRoath.com. It's ROATH. Find us on IG. It's Patrick for Congress. We are getting TikTok going. I should say we are a late primary in Massachusetts. It's next September, so we got a year. We're early. We got a year to build this thing. We are going to do it. There's appetite. There is a lot of excitement on the ground. We're going to raise the money we need, and we have a message I think that really resonates. So I'd love for people to follow along. Find us on social media. Hit that Act Blue on the website. And I think we're building something special. And we can check in again in 6 months or a year too. We'll do that.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
All right. Awesome.
Live stream of the primary. Watch results come in, right? And pray.
Great.
Fingers crossed, right?
Yeah.
All right, Patrick. Well, thanks so much for joining the show.
Thanks so much, fellas. I'll see you later.